To a program for Juneau Audubon Society called Winter Food for Birds. The videos are by Bob Armstrong and the narration is by Brenda Wright. That's me. I hope you're going to be able to enjoy this. It's a very interesting program. Bob is an extremely great font of information and in videos, pictures, information. And if you haven't done it yet, you should definitely go to his webpage called Nature Bob. So what we're going to talk about today is how do birds find food in the winter? I think any of you that have been living in Juneau all this while understand that it's been a harsh winter. And luckily for us, we get to step inside into a warm home, have some warm food, sleep in a warm bed. But what do the birds do? Well, an awful lot of our birds kind of are specialized in either being terrestrial or aquatic. Some live with us all year round, and others only spend part of their time with us. And the reason that they come to spend winter with us is because we attract many, many overwintering birds because our ocean does not freeze here. Inland, where it's in Canada and in northern Alaska, the freshwater all freezes, but our ocean does not freeze here. And our tides come in twice a day and they remove the frost and ice and they uncover the wetlands, which makes for a smorgasbord daily. And many year-round species eat protein-rich insects and crustaceans, and that makes it possible for them to survive these cold temperatures because they're having a protein-rich diet. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through a bunch of our more common birds that overwinter with us. We're going to see some of Bob's videos and talk about the things that they eat during winter. So we're going to start off with the Canadian goose and start a small video here by Bob and watch them while they're eating some limping sedge growth sprouts. As you can see, they like to congregate with each other. It's not like during breeding season when they separate into just pairs and raise their young. In winter, it helps keep down predation to go in a group. And if there's good food and plenty of it, then you don't have to worry about not sharing. Except in some cases. So they're especially attracted to the sedge that in the fall starts its spring sprout. And it's high in protein and readily available to them. So if you want to explore what they're eating, just go out into an area and don't disturb them, but let them go ahead and show you where they've been eating. Now, a bunch of these birds are vegetarians, and they all often the mallards are found near the Canada geese because they are vegetarians and they're looking for good stuff to eat that's readily available on the wetlands because of the tidal influence. So Bob's going to show us pictures of birds and their sounds, but not all of these live with us all winter. The wood duck does not live with us usually during winter, but the gadwall certainly does. Both kinds of widgeons are often the best place to see them in Juneau is the Fish Creek area of the Mendenhall wetlands. And that's the end. The teals, like the shovelers, really like freshwater best. And so they often, there's just a few of them that might stay with us in winter, but they do pass through and we do see them here. And now we get to the ocean going ducks. Many of these leave Juneau in the summer to go breed inland in freshwater on rivers and lakes and ponds. But the harlequin ducks really like surf. And so you can often find them near rocky shores where there's the food that they like. Most of these right here, the harlequin and the scoters, are really, really interested in mussels and other invertebrates on the rocky shores. And they do dive to get it. And you seldom see a surf scoter by itself. They do tend to be in great groups. And the harlequins are pretty friendly too. The white-winged scoters just aren't as many of them. And so you might see them in smaller groups, like maybe up to a dozen instead of 100. And our long-tailed ducks come and go. They live around us, but they don't often come to shore where we can see them more easily, but they do stay with us in the winter. The bufflehead is one of our year-round, and it really, really enjoys small fish and invertebrates from the bottom. Our golden eyes are another one of our birds that breed in the inlands and freshwater, but they come back here and chow down on mussels and all kinds of fun things that they can find near rocky shores. We have two kinds, the common and the barrows. You can notice on the face that this one's got a crescent and the common has a circle with golden eyes. Here's a little video to show you how they eat near shore. Some other of our birds that are aquatic much prefer fish, and they tend to go for the near shore fish that we have here in winter, every winter. If we happen to have a collection of herring, we'll have a big group of birds nearby. But there's also the sand lance, the capelin, and herring if it comes, and quite a few other small shore fish that tend to stay in shallower waters. And that's where we'll see these fish-eating ducks. And sculpins are always tasty because they're handy. Red-breasted. This is their winter plumage. Most of these pictures are in winter plumage so that you'll be easier to recognize them. Remember, these are the ones that like mussels. Bob Armstrong really enjoys playing with his GoPro waterproof cameras. This is a mighty powerful wing stroke it has to make that much distance. And I have to do a little disclaimer there. They just found out recently in the last several years that the murrelet can actually go down to 400 feet. Another fish-eating bird that we see here often in winter is the Pacific loon. And if it's not hard enough to tell it from other loons, the juveniles give you even less help. But we do have them and the common loons in Juneau in winter. And if there's lots of herring, you'll get to see more of them. The horned grebes actually go for slightly smaller fish, and they do tend to be attracted to places where the fish that they like best live. And so you can see them in Aukrek and Statter Harbor. Our pelagic cormorant, this is its winter plumage. It has a little bit of face marking in the summertime during breeding, but they pretty much eat the same kind of fish year round. They're a year-round resident for us. Now, just to hop back to terrestrial birds for a little bit, our willow ptarmigan, you can see it in its winter plumage and it's changing in springtime. They like willow ptarmigan, like willow buds, and they like to stay high in the alpine. They can dig down into the snow and make a really cozy den and just stay there and be nice and warm and cozy until they hop out to get some more willow buds. Our great blue herons some of them live with us all year round. And in warmer times, they really prefer freshwater fishing. They go for dollies and cutthroat and small smolts and all kinds of small salmon. But in wintertime, they're kind of restricted to where they can go. So they either go right to the saltwater shore or to small streamlets that have sticklebacks. So we're going to enjoy this, watching a great blue heron getting its winter food. Now, I don't know if you could tell or not, but they were eating sticklebacks. They're quite small fish. We have 3-spine sticklebacks here. And I think it might take a great deal of fishing to fill up my tummy if I was eating a 3-inch long fish. Our bald eagles live with us year round. I'm sure most of you are aware. And they eat fish most of the year when they don't have a chance to get something really fine off the shore, like a dead animal or somebody's carcass that they threw by the side. But how often have you seen them actually catch one? I'm sure you're probably aware that Bob took the advantage of that eagle by putting a little bit of something tasty right in front of his camera. We have a couple other predatory birds that live with us year round. The sharp-shinned hawk specializes in other small birds, like some of our owls. And the northern goshawk, it likes mammals if it can get them, but it'll certainly take a bird also. And we have a shore bird that not very real common, but that definitely have a few that overwinter with us every year, the killdeer. And they are they're high protein eaters along the shore. So in wintertime, with everything freshwater is frozen up, they're along the saltwater shore, getting lots of high protein from their insects. And a couple other shorebirds that we have that are live with us, but it live in big flocks. So if you see a black turnstone, and sometimes when you see them flying, you can quite easily see that bright pattern on their back, the black and white pattern. They're just like some other birds. They come in groups or not at all. And another one of our sandpipers is the rock sandpiper. Now you might notice that many of these birds are hopping on one leg. That's because it's winter and it's cold. So they're just warming up one leg and warming their nose to try and stay a little warmer in winter. So life can be kind of harsh for these little birds, but on the other hand, they can fluff out really well, get some warmth that way, huddle together and stay with their friends and have plenty of food at low tide. So if you want to see these ones, just go near the rocky shores. So here's the rock sandpiper and it's all its pretty glory. And here's the rock sandpiper with the black turnstones. You can see how easily it is to tell them apart when they stand right next to each other. The other more common one that we have in winter is the dunlin. And in winter, it's quite fancy during breeding season, but in winter, it's a little bit camouflage, blends in well with the sand, but it does have a nice long straight beak, totally black, unlike the others. And of course, we have our gulls. Our mew gull is correct name now, a short-billed gull. And it and the glaucous-wing live with us all winter. I'm sure you've seen them along shore, along anywhere where there might be small food, but they're really actively in groups. And I'm not sure if you ever knew for sure, but short-billed gulls love to dance. You can see it's grabbing lots of little tiny bits of things. That dance mixes the water and the sand, and these little insects float right to the surface. And it might take a lot of dancing, but you get a nice meal. It also likes these small invertebrates. Sorry, not invertebrate. And the glaucous-wing gull is just like the short-billed. Can't get used to saying mew, not saying mew, but they obviously like the shore and anything at all. They're marvelous hunters for any kind of good food. Now, this is another video of Bob's, and a couple of these owls are not actually seen here very often, but the ones that do, like the great horned and the others, several of them are after mostly mammals, squirrels, voles, and other small mammals. And then some of the others are more attracted to hunting for birds. Snowy owls are not residents, but they do come by. Short-eared owls are I especially enjoy the fact that the owls make such a loud noise and distinctive noises because we seldom get to see them, but we do get to hear them. However, if you would like the saw-whet owl that lives in my neighborhood, I'd be happy to share it with you because it sounds just like a backing up truck and it starts about 3 a.m. in the morning. Beep, 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 beep. Another bird that lives with us all year round is the belted kingfisher. And as you can see easily in this picture, it enjoys fish. They're the ones that make quite a racket as they fly, so you can watch them land, and they often come back to the same perch. And then they'll hover in the air until they can find a fish and dive down and get it. The female is the one that has the red on her breast, and the male does not. Now the woodpeckers, all the ones that we have that live with us, are normally attracted to all the bugs and things that live in the bark and other places around trees. But if you were eating bugs all the time, maybe in the summertime, you might take a short break and go over to get a little sugar water for a change of pace. So we have the hairy and the downy, which is slightly smaller than the hairy. And we have the three-toed woodpecker. And they all do make noises, so you can hear them knocking on the wood, and then hopefully get to hear them also when they make their calls. They often call when they fly. But they all are working on the things that go in and around the trees, dead and dying trees. And then we have our Stellar's Day. This is the first of our corvids that we'll talk about. And just like all the other corvids, they're extremely smart. I was just reading up on them a little bit. In the wintertime, 75% of their diet is invertebrates and stuff, and 25% vegetable. But so they have lots of protein in their diet in the winter, and they're eating all kinds of bugs, anything they can come across, and things that they could steal from you also. And another one of our birds that we have this one in winter in small colonies around town. Right around Lena Beach, there's a small one, a couple dozen birds. They have during most of the year, they're really attracted to carrion. But here I've noticed that they do eat mostly protein, just like the Stellar's jay. But I've seen them actually cleaning the grills at Lena Beach after a big party. And our common raven, well, what doesn't it eat? You know, that eats everything. And it's very, very smart, and it will come back to the same place over and over to find that good food that it found there. And we have our American crow and our common raven. Our crow is usually in a group with at least 50 of its friends. So if you just see a couple birds, 2 or 4, it's probably a raven. But when you see them close together, you can make out that nice big wedged tail. Our American crow is extremely smart about using the shoreline. It likes to pick up small shells and drop them from the air so that they break open and get the food that way. And they're always digging around in the seaweed and the shoreline to find all kinds of other good protein. And like I said, what's not to eat? A couple more of us, the birds that spend their entire year with us is the red-breasted nuthatch. Not a whole lot of in Juneau, but they are also a bird that gets all of its food and protein from insects and growing on trees. And some of these particularly care for willows. And the brown creeper makes a very high pitched small noise, very small bird, likes to hang out in the dark, but you'll see it creeping up and down the trees and eating insects there too. Now our chestnut-backed chickadee is a bird that in wintertime, actually about almost 50% of its diet might be protein. But this little guy has an extremely bright mind. It can cache seeds, 10,000 of them, and then remember where they are and go get them when it's time to go get something from the pantry. Very smart little bird. And our Pacific wren, it's not the smallest, but it's very close. And this one's a full-time protein eater, eats insects. And so in wintertime, it's often found near small streamlets or the stream banks and areas that have openings where the bugs are still pretty thick. But if on a winter like this, you tend to see them down closer to the shoreline where there's more things available that aren't buried in snow. But they're full-time resident and full-time protein eater. Our golden crowned kinglets are champions at living at the very, very top of very, very tall trees. And they actually, they eat the seeds of the spruce and the hemlock, and alder, but they really, really like the insects that are preying on those things. And so during winter, they'll be high in the top of the highest trees, eating insects that are attacking the cones and other seeds. And our American dipper, quite an interesting bird. It spends its entire year with us also, and it's an invertebrate eater. But in wintertime, when there's so much of the fresh water is frozen, how does it make a living? Well, it goes to the places that are fast flowing, and so they don't freeze. Looks super tasty, doesn't it? Did you happen to notice there were two different kinds of things that the dipper pumps up and down its legs? That's kind of to help keep the circulation going. And the other one is that it's got a white eyelid. And so sometimes you'll notice that when they're in the stream. A couple other birds that we have that mostly live downtown are European starlings, it turns out that they're very homebodies. They really like to stay in the same place. And so we have one group that lives right downtown. For us now, it's very close to the whale statue, and they move from there over to where the Fish and Game building is. They love berries, and they'll eat any kind of insect. So you see them feeding on the shore and eating berries. And what do you think these guys eat? It seems kind of obvious, doesn't it? We may not have a large population, but they do live here. And our song sparrows, a few, for whatever reason, stay with us all winter, and they're seed-eating birds. So they have to work pretty hard. Most of the time when we see the ones that are living here, they've found a nice warm place to sleep or at night, and there's bare ground somewhere near, and or they come down to the saltwater shore to find food. Our dark-eyed junco is almost 100% vegetarian, but it will, of course, during breeding season, eat more protein. But they are definitely ground feeders. They will jump up into willows and other things like that, and they do eat the insects that attack the willow buds and the alders. But they're really seed eaters. So on a harsh winter like this, they're looking for some bare ground with good seed. Luckily for them, the grasses in the wetlands are open. Snow buntings are another bird that mostly spends just its winter with us. They go someplace even colder in the summer for us. But they're seed-eating birds, and they concentrate on one of the grasses, one of the taller grasses that grows on our wetlands. The red crossbills and the white-winged crossbills are very similar. The female is not as red. The red-winged crossbills, of course, have some white in their wings. And we do have some of each, but they're sometimes not common in winter. But they specialize with their crossbill and eating the seeds right out of the hemlocks and spruce cones. These particular crossbills are working on a squirrel midden. I'm sure you've seen places where the piles are feet deep in the woods, and the crossbills are taking advantage. Female on the left and male on the right. Pine siskins often join us in the wintertime. There's a few that nest with us in summer, but most, they're not real common in summer, but in winter we can have huge flocks, and they really do concentrate on the alders and willows, even though their name is pine. But they're pretty small, and they have to be in flocks. You just never see them by themselves. And they dance too. So that dance ends our presentation. I have to give 100% thanks for all the people that have allowed me to use some of their photos. Bob Armstrong, Jim Beadle, Jason Colin, Bill Hurd, Gwen Bayless, Meryl Jensen, Doug Jones, Lori Lamb, Carrie Monagle, Mark Schwann, Helen Unruh. If you want to know more about Bob's webpage, please check it out at naturebob.com. And if you want to find out more about each of these birds, you can go to Cornell University All About Birds online. Thanks for coming. And I hope if you have questions that you can have a good time talking with the folks that are presenting. Good night.